Hey guys, I'm back and we are going to talk about the emerald chart today. Now, if you have not watched the first video on going ruby and what that takes and what all that entails, I encourage you to pause this real quick and then go to the ruby charting video and get full information there because you need to know how to go ruby in order to go emerald. You got to know how to go ruby to go emerald because a ruby, or excuse me, an emerald is just two rubies. That's it. So once you go ruby, I said this on the last video, once you go ruby, you can go to emerald and you can go to diamond because you're just teaching other people how to go ruby themselves. So I'm going to show you the chart of what an emerald looks like so that way you can see once again, just like where the ruby chart was in eSuite, you click document library, you go to the search bar, instead of typing in ruby, you need to type in the word emerald and this PDF will pop up. So an emerald makes an average a little less than 1,000, although I have seen some emeralds have $1,000 paycheck and above. Especially if you are watching this right now, this is dated January 6th of 2021, and there is a current emerald bonus going on. I can't promise that there will always be an emerald bonus, but it's kind of like the cherry on top for the promotion. So emerald is the stepping stone towards our coveted diamond rank. And they always say when you go diamond that you have the license to print money. And I will do a diamond video as well as to why, what that means, and why you don't want to stop at emerald and why you want to go to diamond because there's even more unlocked in the compensation plan. But let's talk about emerald and how to go emerald and what the emerald chart looks like and give you some strategy to be able to promote to emerald quickly. So it is built off of the Ruby chart. So if you remember, the Ruby chart has three legs on your what we would call a top line. Your top line means just the distributors directly under you. And so you can actually see, you can visualize the Ruby chart within the Emerald because you have you and you have your three original legs. You have one, you have two, you have three. So actually, let's see if I can remember the names that I put in the other video. It's been about 5 minutes since I've recorded the last video, but we had a Jennifer, and I think we had a Julia over here, and I think we had a Jane maybe, or I don't know. I put a J. We're gonna go with the Jane, but I don't know if it was Jane or not. It was a J. And so the first thing I'm going to tell you, my first strategy that I'm going to tell you whenever it comes to going emerald, is you want to write your charts in pencil. Okay, you want to write your charts in pencil because here's why. Just because you happen to write Jennifer, Jane, and Julia in that position, that doesn't mean that that's where they have to be. Charts are fluid, and eSuite does not care who was enrolled first, who was enrolled last. All eSuite cares about when it comes to your emerald promotion is that you have two of those three qualify as rubies, and that's it. They don't care if it's the first one or if it's the last one or if it's the middle one. It doesn't matter. So as long as you have two rubies and two separate legs on your team, then that's going to help qualify you towards emerald. So I say that to give you the example of, let's say that Jane is working, but she's a little distracted. She has some life happen to her. And so maybe she's taking her foot off the pedal a little bit. But remember, in my last scenario, in my Ruby video, Julia was your rock star. She enrolled 800 BV all by herself. So why not be able to take Julia and move Julia here? Oops. And let's put Jane right here because you want to try to make these Ruby people the strongest workers as possible. And so if you have someone who is killing it in the loyal customer department or they have signed up their own distributors, then you want to go ahead and put them in a Ruby leg. Go and get that pencil out, just swap some legs over. And then let's do some more swapping. Let's say that we were helping Jen and maybe we did give her some distributors, but then Jen quits. I don't want to speak that on anybody's business, but it happens. It's part of life. So let's say Jen quits and Jane, she wakes up and she's like, "Oh, well, I want to do this again. I Life has happened or life is done being happened. So now let's put Jane in this Ruby spot and let's put Julia here because she was the rock star. And Jen now can become that qualified leg. So just first strategy, write your charts in pencil and know that these charts are fluid, especially it doesn't matter so much whenever you are a ruby, but as you go towards emerald, there is some strategy along the way. And while we maybe want to build up some family members here or our best friends, we also want to make sure that they meet us halfway. So if you can avoid it, or if you can help it, Try to put your strongest workers in these Ruby positions because number one, they need to take ownership of their promotion. You just don't want to work for them and then collect a paycheck. You want them to meet you halfway, right? I'm going to help you, but you need to help me along the process. So it's a one team, one mission deal. Do your best to try to make these Ruby legs workers. Okay. The last scenario I'm going to give you when it comes to Emerald. Okay. Here's the last scenario. Let me go back to the where Jane and Jen were flip-flopped here. Okay. So let's say Jane is still kind of MIA. She has life happen. And we originally had Jennifer here and we went ahead and we started building Jen. And so we gave her some distributors. Maybe she has a Debbie right here and she has a um, Lola right here. I don't know where I'm coming up with these names, guys. Y'all bear with me. Okay. So she's almost boxed Ruby. And then Jen decides this isn't for me anymore. And she slows down. And you maybe take that and you have a little bit of heartache. But Debbie is her own rock star within herself. Debbie signs up some distributors. Debbie hit her 6 customers in her first week and she is hungry. She's excited. She's on Zoom. She's answering questions in chat. She's asking tons of questions. She has charts out. She has the makings of a rock star. I want to point this out right here. Okay. At the very bottom of in asterisks where it talks about, oh, let me get out of this real quick, my antidote thing. Okay. If I zoom in at the very bottom right here, it says right here that a qualified leg is one with an active distributor. Okay, that's not the one I want. Right. Okay, maybe it doesn't say. I'm just kidding. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm kidding. I thought it was there, but it's not there. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Okay, it does not. The Ruby does not have to be your top line girl. Okay. When it says Ruby leg, that doesn't mean the top line person has to qualify Ruby. It just means you need a Ruby somewhere in this team. So if Jen backs off, but you happen to have the scenario where Debbie is the rock star, go and run with the runner. Go and work with the worker. And so that's why we have it in pencil. We understand Jen's here. If she needs our help or wants to come back, great. But how about let's shift Debbie up into this position? Debbie is working. We still have Jen up here. Okay, so we know that Debbie is on Jen's team, but we're not going to have Jen necessarily on our promotion chart, but just always have your hand out because you do have all these people on your chart. So we're still here. We're still helping them just for building purposes when it comes to following the chart. We're going to run with Debbie because Debbie signed up her own distributor. She signed up 2 distributors. Well, heck, let's go ahead. I signed up a distributor. This is me. I'm going to go ahead and give her my DT to finish out her Ruby leg. But Debbie's rocking and rolling. She's signing up customers. She's going to be helping with these qualified legs because remember, qualified legs are just 400 group volume. So that's just another piece of strategy is always have your eyes open to not just the top line people, but the people on the other levels too, because you may have a diamond in the rough that you're missing out on because you're so laser focused on having these top line people go Ruby. And sometimes we do have to bless and release. And sometimes we just have to have our hand out and just extend it to people because we want to help the ones that want to help themselves. So just keep that strategy in mind. Okay, so the emerald looks like this. You kind of know what the charts look like. You have your 3, I call them top line, but be very hesitant because remember the Ruby can be within a leg somewhere else. Julia's still our runner. She signed up a couple of distributors. She signed up 2 on her own and I signed up 1. And so I gave her 1 myself. Well, now Julia is boxed in for Ruby. Debbie is boxed in for Ruby. And that's the first part. Okay, so your requirements for Emerald, you need 3 qualified legs. 2 of those legs are rubies. So I have rubies built, and then I have my third person up here in Jane. So anybody who is a gray box on here, or it says qualified leg, remember those are just 400s. So Jane only needs to be at 400 in group volume minimum to qualify for Emerald. Same thing with all of these gray boxes down here. Minimum, they need to be 400, but we will definitely welcome anybody who wants to go above and beyond 400. But minimum, that's what we need, 400. And then we need Julia and Debbie to qualify Ruby. But so you have to know how to go Ruby in order to help Debbie and Julia go Ruby, because remember, when you go Ruby, you need 400, 400, 400, but that's only 1200 in volume. A Ruby needs 2000 in group volume. So you need to have Debbie's leg needs to have at least 2,000 in group volume. Same thing with Julia. So Julia is going to need 2,000 in group volume. I'm trying to write this very carefully so that way it looks semi-legible. J needs to be a qualified leg, needs to be 400. But if you do all of this math, you have 2,000 in the Debbie leg, you have 2,000 in the Julia leg, and you have 4,000 in the Jane leg. If you do the math, that's only 2,400 GV. You need 5,000 is the other requirement to go Emerald. Now, this 5,000 can come once you hit all of these like boxes. And even if you have the rubies pop, if you have 2 rubies in a qualified leg, they are going to promote. But in order for you to promote to, oh, sorry, that's not 2,000. Just kidding. That looked really, there we go, 4,400. Sorry for that. I'm not going to re-record. We're just going to go with it. But even if Debbie promotes to Ruby, Julia promotes to Ruby, and Jane is at least 400, that's still 4,400 GV. Your team is going to hit the promotions, but they don't need to stop there, and you don't need to stop there because your last requirement for Emerald's 5,000. You need 5,000 in group. Sorry, you need 5,000 in group volume. So you have to make sure that you have the rest of that taken care of by either. Remember, we had Jen and we had Lola hanging up here. Well, Jen may have some customers. What if she has 200 in GV? She's not a part of Debbie's leg. She's above Debbie's leg. Well, there's 200 hanging out right here. Let's say Lola maybe signed up a couple of customers. She has 100 right here. Well, that's an extra 300. And then you have some personal customers too. Remember, you have your PBV, you have your personal volume. So let's say your own personal customers before you started building your Ruby, they're sitting at 400. Well, this is all outside of your rubies and your qualified leg. That's outside of this 4,400. So you have 400, 200, 100. That's what, 600? Oh, well, there you go. 4,400 plus 600, that is 5K to earn you right now, January 2021, a 5K bonus. So that is how you go Emerald. The last strategy I'm going to give you when it comes to placing is when you are building your Ruby and maybe you haven't quite gone Ruby yet, have the idea of Emerald in place. Whenever you fill in your Ruby and you have your distributors in place, get the Emerald chart out, okay? Because your Ruby chart is filled in. You have the distributors in place. And so all you're lacking is volume. But if you have some of those dangling distributors left over, have the future, the foresight, if you will, to build towards your Emerald. So let's say that you are not even a Ruby yet. I'm going to go back to the original Ruby, okay? You're not even a Ruby yet, but we're working on. So you have these people in place. You're looking at just the Ruby, okay? Try to imagine just the Ruby here. But let's say that Jen signed up Debbie before we go Ruby. And this is what your Ruby chart looks like. This is technically your team that you have, okay? As you're placing your loyals, understand that Jen, yes, Jen needs to be at 400 for your Ruby, not Emerald, but for your Ruby. Okay, this may be easier on a Ruby chart, but we're just going to go with it. Jen needs to be 400 to on your Ruby, but remember that that's GV, that is group volume right here. That means it's the added volume of Jen and Debbie. And so as you're placing, you don't necessarily need to place all of your loyals with Jen if you have eyes on Emerald. So you may place a couple with Jen to get your fast starts and that sort of stuff. But don't forget about Debbie over here, because if you look at the long term, Emerald, you're going to need Debbie at a qualified leg. So you might as well start placing some LCs down here with Debbie as well. Go ahead and get her, work on her 400. Because remember, even though you're placing down here at a different level, that is adding up to the GV of Jen, which is going to help with your Ruby. So I hope that that made sense and it's clear as mud. But that is talking about when you haven't quite gone Ruby yet, but you want to go Emerald, and you have the scenario where you have a couple of your Ruby people having their own distributors yet. Have the foresight to be able to look ahead and say, maybe I don't need to place all of my loyals on my top line people when they have people under them, because I can build towards Emerald while still promoting to Ruby. So I hope all of that made sense. If you guys have questions, please tag your sponsor in the comments so that way they can help you. And I hope this video helps. If you like this and you're hungry for more, we want you to stay at Emerald for approximately 1 month because you need to go diamond. You do not want to stay at Emerald. You want to hit diamond. So go find the diamond video now because I'm going to explain all about why we say diamond is the license to print money. Bye.